I stare at the bank statement in my hands, the numbers blurring together as my world collapses around me because the 180 we saved for 3 years for our IVF treatments, the money that was supposed to create our family, has been transferred to some law firm I've never heard of in downtown. And when I confront Melissa about it, she doesn't even try to lie anymore. Walsh? Associates Family Law? I read aloud from the transfer receipt, my voice hollow in our pristine kitchen with its marble countertops and stainless steel appliances that suddenly feel like props in someone else's life. Melissa, what the hell is Walsh? Associates Family Law, and why did you send them our entire IVF savings account? She doesn't even look up from her phone where she's been texting frantically ever since I walked into the kitchen with the bank statements, and I realize with a sick certainty that she's been expecting this moment, that she's been planning what to say, how to justify the theft of our dreams. It's for Ryan, she says, finally, setting down her phone and meeting my eyes with a defiance that I've never seen before, a hardness that makes me wonder how long she's been wearing a mask in our marriage. He needs the money more than we do, Daniel. He's fighting for his children. Ryan? I repeat the name like it's a foreign word, because I don't know any Ryan. Have never heard her mention anyone named Ryan, and yet she says his name with a familiarity that sends ice through my veins. Who the hell is Ryan, and why would you give him our money without even discussing it with me? She laughs then, a bitter sound that echoes in our kitchen, and I see her transform before my eyes from the woman I thought I married into someone I don't recognize at all. Ryan Walsh? The man I actually love. The man who deserves my help because he's fighting to get his children back from his vindictive ex-wife who's trying to keep them from him out of spite. She stands up from the kitchen island, smoothing down her designer dress that I bought her last month, and continues with a cruelty that takes my breath away. The money meant more to him than it ever could to us, Daniel, because your family already has everything while he's struggling to afford lawyers to see his own kids. The betrayal hits me in waves, each revelation worse than the last, because not only has she stolen our money, she's been having an affair, and not only has she been having an affair, she's been lying to me about wanting children while using our fertility struggles as cover for her deception. How long? I ask, my voice barely above a whisper, because suddenly everything makes sense. Her reluctance to schedule the IVF appointments, her distant behavior over the past few months, the way she's been protective of her phone. How long have you been seeing him? Since the medical equipment conference in March. She admits without shame, actually lifting her chin with pride, as if her affair is something to be celebrated. He was working on the convention center renovation, and we started talking. And for the first time in years, I felt like someone actually needed me, not just my connection to your family's money. The words hit like physical blows, because I thought our marriage was solid. I thought we were partners working toward the same goal of starting a family. But apparently, while I was planning our future, she was planning my destruction. I sink into one of the kitchen chairs, the bank statements scattered across the marble surface like evidence of my own stupidity, because how did I miss this? How did I not see that my wife was stealing from us to fund her lover's custody battle? The IVF appointments? I say slowly, pieces clicking into place with horrible clarity. You've been sabotaging them, haven't you? The timing, the delays, the excuses about not being ready? Her silence is answer enough, but then she shrugs with casual cruelty that makes me understand I never really knew her at all. I've been on birth control the entire time, Daniel. I never wanted children with you. I was just buying time while I figured out how to get what I needed. She walks to the window overlooking our backyard with its perfectly manicured lawn and expensive outdoor furniture, and says without turning around, Ryan's children need that money for legal fees. His ex-wife Elena is trying to take them away completely, and she has family money backing her lawyers while Ryan was working construction trying to save up. It was the right thing to do. The right thing to do. She calls stealing our money to help her affair partner fight his ex-wife the right thing to do, and I realize that not only has she betrayed our marriage, she's actively working to help break up another family. You gave our money to help some man take children away from their mother? I ask, standing up so quickly the chair scrapes against the kitchen floor. Melissa, do you understand what you've done? That money was supposed to help us create life, not destroy other people's families. You don't understand, she snaps, whirling around to face me with fury in her eyes that I've apparently deserved without knowing it. Elena Walsh is vindictive and controlling, trying to poison those children against their father because she can't accept that he's moved on. Ryan told me everything about how she manipulates the custody schedule and talks badly about him to the kids, and he deserves to have his children in his life. The passionate defense of this man she's known for a few months, while dismissing our 3-year marriage, tells me everything I need to know about where her loyalties lie. But there's something else, something in her eyes that makes me realize this goes deeper than just an affair. And when I check her phone later that night after she's fallen asleep, I find months of text messages that reveal the full scope of her betrayal. She's been photographing documents from my home office, sending Ryan information about Chen Medical's contracts and bidding processes, helping him underbid our company for construction jobs. The IVF money wasn't just personal theft. It was part of a larger plan to hurt my family's business while funding her new life with her lover. The next few months pass in a blur of legal battles and family destruction that I'm powerless to stop because by the time I discover the full scope of Melissa's betrayal, the damage is already too far advanced to undo. Ryan uses our money to hire the top family law firm in the city, the same firm that represents corporate raiders and hostile takeovers, and they systematically destroy Elena Walsh's case for custody by overwhelming her with legal fees she can't afford. I try to help Elena by paying for her legal representation, but Melissa files for divorce and seeks an injunction freezing my assets, claiming I'm hiding money from our marital estate. The worst part is watching my father's health deteriorate as the stress of the business attacks takes its toll, because Ryan's construction company uses the insider information Melissa provided to file a massive lawsuit against Chen Medical for anti-competitive practices, claiming we've been using our market position to exclude smaller contractors from bidding. The irony is devastating. They're using our own money and information to destroy us, and there's nothing I can do to stop it because every legal move I make gets countered by the lawyers we're inadvertently funding. Patricia Wong, my father's business partner and the mother of my childhood friend Sarah, tries to mediate between the families, but Melissa refuses to negotiate, claiming she's the victim of an abusive marriage and that I was controlling her access to money. She testifies in divorce proceedings that I was financially abusive, that I monitored her spending and made her feel worthless, painting a picture of our marriage that's so distorted I barely recognize it. The woman who lived in luxury, who never worked a day during our marriage, who had unlimited access to credit cards and bank accounts, claims I kept her trapped and dependent. Sarah flies back from her medical residency in Boston when she hears about my father's stroke, and seeing her again after 2 years reminds me of everything good that I'm losing, all the relationships I took for granted while I was focused on my toxic marriage. She doesn't ask questions about the divorce or offer unwanted advice, just quietly helps manage my father's care while I try to save what's left of our family business. Her presence is a comfort I don't deserve, a reminder of the person I used to be before Melissa's manipulation poisoned everything. The custody hearing is a nightmare of money and legal maneuvering that destroys everyone except the lawyers, because Ryan wins partial custody using our IVF money to pay for experts who testify that Elena is an unfit mother, that she's alienating the children from their father, that she's emotionally unstable. Elena loses her children for half the week, watching helplessly as they're forced to spend time with the man who cheated on her and the woman who funded his legal campaign against her. The victory celebration photos Ryan posts on social media, showing him with Melissa and his children at some expensive restaurant, feel like a knife in my chest because those should have been our children. That should have been our family celebration. Everything falls apart in the span of 6 months, faster than I ever imagined possible, because once Melissa's betrayal becomes public, the social and business consequences cascade beyond anything I could have prevented. My father suffers a second stroke when Chen Medical's stock price plummets after the lawsuit allegations become public, and I realize that Melissa's theft wasn't just about money. It was about destroying my entire family to build her new life with Ryan. I'm driving home from another failed mediation session, rain pounding against the windshield of my BMW as I try to process the lawyer's recommendation that we settle the business lawsuit by paying Ryan's company $2 million for damages, when my phone rings with news that my father has been rushed to the hospital again. The irony isn't lost on me that I'm racing to see my dying father with money that was stolen from me being used to destroy everything he built, and I push the accelerator harder than I should on the wet roads. The last thing I remember is the truck running the red light, the moment of impact that sends my car spinning across the intersection, and the crystalline clarity that comes in those final seconds when you realize your life is ending. As the car flips and the world goes dark, my last thought is how I failed everyone who mattered, how my trust destroyed my family, how Melissa's betrayal cost Elena her children and my father his health, and I die knowing that my money was used as a weapon against innocent people. I open my eyes and I'm sitting at my desk in my home office, But the date on my computer shows March 15th, exactly 6 months before everything fell apart, and the bank statement on my screen shows our IVF savings account is still completely intact with every penny of the 180 we worked so hard to save. The morning sunlight streams through the windows just like it did that day when Melissa first met Ryan at the medical equipment conference, and I realize with absolute certainty that I've been given a second chance to save everyone I love. My hands shake as I check the calendar on my phone, confirming that today is the day Melissa leaves for the convention center where she'll meet the man who destroys our lives. And for the first time since opening my eyes, I feel something other than confusion. I feel rage. Pure, clean rage at the knowledge of what she's planning to do, what she's capable of doing, how easily she betrayed everything we built together. But this time I'm not the trusting fool who believed her lies about wanting children, who gave her access to our finances without question, who ignored the warning signs because I was blinded by love. I pull up our joint bank account and start the process of moving the IVF money into a trust account that only I can access, using the financial planning strategies my father taught me but I never thought I'd need to use against my own wife. Every keystroke feels like armor being forged, protection against the betrayal I know is coming, and I realize that being reborn isn't just about getting a second chance. It's about becoming the man I should have been the first time. The house feels different now that I know what Melissa really thinks of me, of our marriage, of the life we built together, and when she comes downstairs dressed for the conference in the black dress I complimented her on in my previous life, I see her clearly for the first time. She's beautiful, charming, perfectly groomed, and completely hollow. A woman who views our marriage as a business transaction and our money as her rightful inheritance. Have a good day at the conference, I tell her, my voice steady despite the knowledge that she's about to meet her future lover, and she kisses my cheek with the same casual affection she showed me every day while planning my destruction. After she leaves, I call the private investigator that Patricia Wong recommended during our divorce proceedings, a man named Marcus Chen who specializes in corporate espionage and marital infidelity, and arrange for surveillance on Melissa, starting immediately. Then I drive to Elena Walsh's house, a modest two-story in a middle-class neighborhood that's about to become a battlefield, and knock on her door with the knowledge that I need to save her family to save my own. Elena answers the door looking exactly as I remember from the custody hearings, tired, stressed, trying to hold everything together for her children. But when I introduce myself as Daniel Chen from Chen Medical, she invites me in with the courtesy of someone who doesn't yet know that my wife is about to destroy her life. Mrs. Walsh, I say carefully, sitting in her living room surrounded by children's toys and family photos that show happier times, I have reason to believe your ex-husband is planning to file for a custody modification, and I wanted to offer my company's legal resources to help you prepare. She looks confused but grateful, because she doesn't understand why a stranger would offer to help with her personal legal issues, and I can't exactly explain that my wife is going to fund her ex-husband's custody battle with money stolen from our fertility treatments. That's very generous, Mr. Chen, but I'm not sure I understand why Chen Medical would be interested in my custody situation. Her children are at school, the house is quiet except for the ticking of a wall clock that sounds like a countdown timer, and I realize that I have maybe days before Melissa's affair begins and Elena's nightmare starts. Let's just say that I believe every child deserves to stay with the parent who truly has their best interests at heart. I tell her, which is true even if it's not the complete truth. I'd like to retain Thompson, Associates on your behalf, with all fees handled through a charitable foundation my family supports. Elena's eyes fill with tears at this unexpected kindness, and I know that the investment will pay for itself when Ryan can't use superior legal firepower to steamroll her into submission. That evening, Melissa returns from the conference with a glow that I now recognize as the beginning of infatuation, and she tells me about meeting interesting people in the construction industry, including a contractor who was working on the venue. She's already starting to lay the groundwork for her affair, testing how much attention I pay to her daily activities, and I nod along while secretly recording our conversation on my phone. That sounds nice, honey, I say, playing the role of the oblivious husband while documenting everything for the divorce proceedings I know are coming. Over the next few weeks, I watch Melissa's behavior change in exactly the ways I remember, but this time I'm prepared for each escalation instead of being blindsided by her betrayal. When she starts working late and being protective of her phone, I already have surveillance footage of her meetings with Ryan at various hotels around the city. When she begins asking pointed questions about Chen Medical's upcoming projects, I feed her false information that will expose her corporate espionage when Ryan's company starts bidding on contracts they shouldn't know about. The hardest part is pretending to still want children with her, still discussing our fertility appointments and treatment options, when I know she's been taking birth control the entire time and never intended to have my baby. But I force myself to maintain the charade because I need time to build my case, to protect my assets, to ensure that when I expose her betrayal, the evidence is so overwhelming that no court will side with her lies about being an abused wife. Sarah calls me during this period to check on how I'm doing, because even from Boston she can sense that something is wrong, and hearing her voice reminds me that not everyone in my life is a liar and manipulator. "You sound different, Daniel," she says during one of our late-night conversations about her residency and my work. "Older, maybe, or more serious. Is everything okay with you and Melissa?" The question hits like a physical blow because Sarah was always perceptive, always cared about my well-being, even when I was too blind to appreciate it. "Everything's fine." I lie because I can't explain that I died and came back to life with perfect knowledge of my wife's upcoming betrayal. "Just work stress? You know how it is." But Sarah knows me too well to accept such a simple explanation, and her gentle probing reminds me of all the conversations we used to have before I got married, when she was my closest friend and confidant, instead of someone I only saw at family gatherings. 3 weeks after Melissa's first meeting with Ryan, I have enough evidence to destroy them both. But I wait because I remember how the public exposure at the charity gala created the most devastating consequences for their reputations and social standing. Instead, I spend the time strengthening Elena's legal position and preparing for the business lawsuit I know Ryan will file, setting up financial structures that will protect Chen Medical's assets and ensure that any corporate espionage charges stick to both Ryan and Melissa. Marcus Chen's surveillance reports read like a soap opera of adultery and financial planning, because not only is Melissa sleeping with Ryan Walsh, she's also meeting with his business partners to share information about Chen Medical's bidding processes and contract negotiations. The photos are damning. Melissa and Ryan in hotel rooms, Melissa photographing documents from my home office, Melissa and Ryan meeting with lawyers who specialize in corporate litigation. Every piece of evidence makes the case stronger that this isn't just an affair but a coordinated attack on my family's business. The day before Melissa planned to transfer the IVF money in my original timeline, I'm ready with countermeasures that will turn her weapons against her, and I realize that the greatest gift rebirth gave me wasn't just the knowledge of what would happen, but the emotional distance to plan strategically instead of reacting from hurt and betrayal. This time, when she destroys our marriage, I'll be the one controlling the narrative. I move the IVF money into an irrevocable trust 2 days before Melissa planned to steal it, structuring the transfer through my family's legal team in a way that makes it legally impossible for her to access, even through divorce proceedings. And when she discovers that the account is empty, her mask finally slips completely. "Where's the money, Daniel?" she demands, standing in my office doorway with her phone in her hand, probably fresh from texting Ryan about their failed theft plan. "The IVF account is empty. What did you do with our money?" "Our money?" I repeat, looking up from the quarterly reports I'm reviewing while secretly recording our conversation on my phone. "Melissa, that was never our money. That was money I earned, money I saved, money that you never contributed a single dollar toward, so I moved it into a medical trust where it will actually be used for its intended purpose." The trust, managed by Patricia Wong and designed to help couples struggling with fertility issues, ensures that the money will create life instead of destroying it, and watching Melissa's face as she realizes her theft plan has failed gives me more satisfaction than I expected. She recovers quickly, shifting into manipulation mode with the skill of someone who's been lying her entire adult life, and approaches my desk with the concerned wife expression that used to make me feel guilty for doubting her. "Daniel, we discussed this money, we planned for it together. You can't just move it without talking to me first. We're supposed to be partners in this marriage." The word partners sounds obscene coming from someone who's been betraying me for months, but I let her continue because every word she says is being recorded and will be used against her in court. "You're right, we should discuss major financial decisions together." I agree, opening the folder on my desk that contains Marcus Chen's surveillance photos. "Like how you've been meeting with Ryan Walsh 3 times a week for the past month? Or how you photographed our contractor bidding files and shared them with his company? Or how you plan to steal our fertility money to fund his custody battle against his ex-wife?" I spread the photos across my desk like playing cards, watching her face cycle through shock, denial, and finally defiant anger as she realizes she's been caught. "You had me followed?" she whispers, picking up one of the photos that shows her and Ryan in a passionate embrace outside the downtown Marriott. "You actually hired someone to spy on your own wife?" The outrage in her voice is genuine, because in her mind, she's the victim of a controlling husband, not a cheating wife caught in multiple felonies, and I marvel at her ability to reframe reality to support her narrative. "I protected our assets from theft," I correct, standing up and walking around the desk to face her directly. "Just like I protected Elena Walsh's children from losing their mother to your lover's custody battle, and just like I protected my family's business from your corporate espionage." The shock on her face tells me she didn't realize I knew about Elena or the business information she's been stealing, and I continue with cold satisfaction. "Did you really think you could destroy my family, steal our money, and ruin other people's lives without consequences?" She tries one more manipulation, reaching for my hands with tears in her eyes that might even be real, because losing access to my money means losing the power to help Ryan, which means losing the man she actually loves. "Daniel, you don't understand. Ryan's children need their father, and Elena is trying to keep them apart out of spite. I was trying to help a family stay together, not break one apart." The tears, the pleading voice, the concerned expression, it's all perfectly calculated to make me feel like the villain for stopping her betrayal. But I've died once because of her manipulation, watched my father suffer strokes because of her theft, seen innocent children torn from their mother because of her greed, and this time I'm immune to her performance. "The only family you're trying to help is the one you're planning to create with your lover using money you stole from your husband," I tell her, my voice steady despite the rage burning in my chest. "Elena Walsh never did anything to you, and neither did her children, but you were willing to destroy them to prove your love to a man you've known for 2 months. The facade drops completely then, and I see the real Melissa for the first time in our marriage, cold, calculating, utterly selfish, and completely unrepentant about the damage she's caused." "Fine," she snaps, gathering up the photos and throwing them back at me. "Yes, I love Ryan. Yes, I was helping him fight for his children. And yes, I think your family has enough money to spare some for people who actually need it. Ryan is a good man trying to be a good father, and you're just jealous that I found someone who actually values what I can contribute to a relationship." "What you can contribute?" I laugh, because the irony is so perfect it's almost artistic. "Melissa, you haven't worked in 3 years. You've never earned $1 of the money you've been spending, and your contribution to Ryan's relationship is theft and corporate espionage. You're not a partner, you're a parasite, and the only reason Ryan wants you is because you have access to my family's wealth." The words hit her like physical blows, because deep down she knows I'm right, knows that without my money, she's just another middle-class woman with no particular skills or achievements. She moves out that weekend, taking only the possessions she brought to our marriage, because the prenuptial agreement her lawyer assured her was just a formality turns out to be ironclad when it comes to protecting family assets from adultery and theft. Ryan helps her pack, bold enough to come to our house now that their affair is exposed, and I watch from my office window as they load her things into his pickup truck while Elena's children play in their own yard just a few miles away, unaware that their father is stealing their security to fund his new relationship. The charity gala is in 2 weeks, the annual Chen Medical fundraiser for children's hospitals that draws 300 of the city's elite to the ballroom of the Grand Hyatt, and I've arranged for the evidence of Melissa's betrayal to be presented in a way that will destroy both her and Ryan's reputations permanently. Sarah flies in from Boston for the event, beautiful and elegant in a midnight blue gown that makes me realize how much I've missed having someone genuine in my life, and when she asks about Melissa's absence, I tell her she'll understand everything by the end of the evening. "You look tired, Daniel," Sarah says as we stand in the hotel lobby greeting guests, her hand light on my arm in the way that used to comfort me when we were children. "Are you sure you're okay? Patricia mentioned that you and Melissa were having problems, but she didn't give me details. Her concern is real, untainted by manipulation or hidden agendas, and for a moment I'm tempted to tell her everything. About the rebirth, the betrayal, the revenge I'm about to unleash. I'm better than I've been in months," I tell her honestly, because knowing that justice is finally coming feels like emerging from a long darkness into sunlight. And after tonight, everyone will understand why. She studies my face with the analytical mind that made her a brilliant surgeon, but before she can ask more questions, we're called into the ballroom for the presentation ceremony. The ballroom is magnificent, filled with the most powerful families in the city, all dressed in formal wear and seated at tables that cost $10,000 each. And I realize that Melissa and Ryan's social destruction will be witnessed by everyone who matters in their professional lives. My father, recovered enough to attend but still fragile from his strokes, sits at the head table with Patricia Wong and the other board members, unaware that tonight he'll finally understand why his health suffered and his business was attacked. I take the podium to give the keynote speech about Chen Medical's charitable mission, looking out over an audience that includes judges, politicians, business leaders, and society reporters who will ensure that tonight's revelations spread far beyond this ballroom. Tonight we're raising money for children's charities. I begin, my voice carrying clearly through the sound system. Organizations that protect the most vulnerable members of our society and ensure that every child has a chance to grow up in a loving, stable home. The first slide appears on the ballroom screens behind me, showing Elena Walsh's children playing in their backyard, innocent and happy before their lives were torn apart by adult greed and manipulation. These children were nearly separated from their mother by a man who stole money meant to create life and used it to destroy their family. I continue, watching the audience's confusion as they try to understand where this presentation is going. The next slide shows the bank transfer from our IVF account to Walsh Associates Family Law, with dates and amounts clearly visible, and I hear gasps from the audience as they realize they're witnessing the exposure of a major theft. The money used to attack this family was stolen from my marriage by my wife, Melissa Torres Chen, who gave our fertility savings to her lover to fund his custody battle against his ex-wife. The photos appear then, Marcus Chen's surveillance images of Melissa and Ryan together, intimate embraces and secret meetings that leave no doubt about their relationship, and the ballroom erupts in shocked whispers as 300 of the city's elite see exactly what kind of woman Melissa really is. I spot her in the back of the ballroom, white-faced and frozen in her chair next to Ryan, who looks like he wants to flee, but the hotel security I arranged ensures they can't leave until the presentation is finished. Melissa Torres Chen and Ryan Walsh didn't just steal money meant to help us start a family. I continue, advancing to the slides showing her photographing documents in my home office. They also engaged in corporate espionage, stealing confidential business information to help Ryan's construction company file fraudulent lawsuits against Chen Medical. The evidence is overwhelming, photo after photo of Melissa's betrayal, each image projected 20 feet high for everyone to see clearly. The social destruction is immediate and complete, because this audience doesn't just represent financial power, they represent the moral authority of old money families who built their fortunes on reputation and honor. Melissa's own extended family, seated at a table near the front, stares at the screens in horror as their daughter's theft and adultery are exposed in front of everyone they know. Ryan's business partners, who accepted invitations as his guests, quietly leave their table and exit through the side doors, clearly calculating how quickly they can distance themselves from the scandal. But the final revelation is the most devastating, because I've saved Elena Walsh's story for last, and when her children appear on screen again, this time in a courtroom being forced to choose between their parents because Ryan used stolen money to hire lawyers their mother couldn't afford, the audience's shock turns to genuine anger. Elena Walsh lost custody of her children for half the week because my wife funded her ex-husband's legal campaign with money she stole from our marriage. I conclude, my voice steady despite the magnitude of what I'm revealing. Tonight we're raising money for children's charities, but my wife was planning to steal money meant for our future children to help her lover take children away from their mother. The applause that follows is thunderous, not just because the audience supports the charity, but because they're witnessing justice being served against people who violated every code of decency and honor that their society values. Melissa and Ryan flee the ballroom as soon as the lights come up, but the damage is done. By tomorrow morning, their social and professional destruction will be complete, and Elena's lawyer will have enough evidence to file for emergency custody modification. Sarah finds me afterward in the hotel bar, where I'm sitting alone with a scotch and watching the news coverage of the gala on the television above the bar. And when she sits beside me without saying anything, I realize that she understood everything, even before tonight's revelations. "How long did you know?" she asks quietly, her hand covering mine on the bar top with warmth that feels like forgiveness. Longer than I should have, I admit, because in a way it's true. I should have seen Melissa's true nature long before I died and came back to stop her, but not long enough to prevent all the damage she caused. Sarah doesn't ask for details about how I discovered the affair or why I waited to expose it. Just signals the bartender for wine and settles in beside me like she's planning to stay as long as I need her to. Elena's children will be okay? She tells me after we've sat in comfortable silence for a few minutes. Patricia told me you hired Thompson Associates for her. They're the best family law firm in the city, and the business will recover from whatever damage Melissa and Ryan caused. Her confidence in my decisions, her assumption that I did everything for good reasons, reminds me why I always felt so comfortable talking to her before I got married and lost sight of what genuine affection looked like. The divorce proceedings take 3 months and result in Melissa receiving nothing beyond the return of her personal possessions because the prenuptial agreement she signed included specific clauses about adultery and theft that void any claims to marital assets. Ryan's construction company goes bankrupt within 6 weeks of the gala because no one in the city will work with a contractor who steals from families and engages in corporate espionage. Elena regains full custody of her children after Ryan's arrest for attempted theft and conspiracy, and the kids slowly begin to heal from the trauma of being used as weapons in their parents' war. Chen Medical's stock price rises after the exposure of the corporate espionage plot because investors appreciate transparency and decisive action against threats to the company's integrity. My father's health improves dramatically once the stress of the lawsuit disappears, and he promotes me to CEO 6 months ahead of schedule, recognizing that my handling of the crisis proved my readiness for leadership. The pharmaceutical division I develop using Sarah's medical expertise becomes our most profitable segment, creating breakthrough treatments for childhood diseases that save thousands of lives. But the greatest victory isn't financial or professional. It's the look on Elena Walsh's face when her children run to her after school each day, secure in the knowledge that they'll be sleeping in their own beds every night. The money that was supposed to create life ultimately saved the lives of children who were already here, and I realized that sometimes the universe provides exactly the justice it intended, just not in the way we expected. 2 years after the charity gala that ended my marriage and destroyed my enemies, I'm standing in Sarah's pediatric clinic watching her examine a little girl who reminds me of Elena's daughter, and I realize that the life I'm building now is better than anything I imagined in my first timeline. Sarah has opened the most advanced children's medical facility in the region, using Chen medical equipment and my family's financial backing, combining her surgical expertise with our medical technology to save children who would have died just a decade ago. Dr. Wong is the best pediatric surgeon in the country. I tell the worried parents as Sarah explains their daughter's treatment options with the patience and compassion that made me fall in love with her intelligence long before I appreciated her beauty. Your little girl is going to be just fine. The confidence in my voice comes from 2 years of watching Sarah work miracles, 2 years of building a partnership that's both professional and personal, 2 years of learning what it feels like to be with someone who loves me for who I am rather than what I can provide. Sarah looks up from her examination with the smile that used to light up my childhood and now brightens my adult life, and I see our future in her eyes: marriage, children, a family built on genuine affection rather than manipulation and lies. The surgery is scheduled for next week, she tells the parents, her voice calm and reassuring in the way that saved so many families from despair. We'll use the latest minimally invasive techniques, and your daughter should make a complete recovery. After the family leaves, Sarah and I walk through the clinic together, checking on the other young patients and reviewing the day's cases, and I marvel at how different this feels from the sterile conversations I used to have with Melissa about money and social status. With Sarah, every conversation teaches me something new about medicine, about helping people, about what it means to build something meaningful instead of just accumulating wealth. The Chen Foundation approved funding for the new pediatric cancer wing. I tell her as we review the architectural plans spread across her office conference table. Construction starts next month, and we should be able to treat twice as many children by this time next year. The foundation, created with the money that Melissa tried to steal for Ryan's custody battle, has become my father's greatest pride and my own most meaningful accomplishment. Sarah's hand finds mine across the table as we study the blueprints that will expand our clinic into a full children's hospital, and I realize that this moment, planning to save more lives, building something permanent with the woman I love, represents everything I lost in my first life and everything I've gained through my second chance. I love working with you, she says simply. Words that mean more than all of Melissa's passionate declarations because they come without ulterior motives or hidden agendas. We have dinner that night at the same restaurant where I used to take Melissa for our anniversary celebrations. But with Sarah, the conversation flows naturally from hospital business to childhood memories to dreams for the future, and I realized that I never really knew what companionship felt like until I found someone who shared my values instead of just sharing my bank account. Do you ever think about having children? Sarah asks over dessert, her question casual but her eyes serious, and I understand that we're finally discussing the future we've been building toward for 2 years. Every day, I admit, thinking about the children we could have together, the family we could create based on love rather than manipulation. But only with you, and only when you're ready. The patience comes naturally now, because I've learned the difference between genuine partnership and selfish demand, between building a life together and imposing my timeline on someone else's dreams. Sarah's smile tells me everything I need to know about her readiness, and when she mentions that she's been thinking about reducing her surgery schedule to make time for family planning, I realize that the universe has finally given me the happy ending I never believed I deserved. I want our children to grow up the way we did, she says, reaching across the table to take my hand. Secure, loved, surrounded by family who puts their welfare first. The contrast with my previous marriage is so stark it's almost funny, because with Melissa, every conversation about children was fraught with tension and hidden agendas, while with Sarah, the topic feels natural and inevitable, just another aspect of the life we're already building together. They will, I promise, thinking about the trust funds I've already established, the security I can provide, the extended family network of the Chens and Wongs who will love our children unconditionally. 6 months later, we're married in the same ballroom where I destroyed Melissa and Ryan's reputations. But this time the event celebrates love instead of exposing betrayal, with 300 guests who attended both events commenting on how different the atmosphere feels when genuine joy fills the space. Elena Walsh attends with her children, who are thriving in their stable home environment, and she tells me during the reception that my decision to help her family saved more than just her custody case. It saved her faith in human decency. I never properly thanked you for what you did, Elena says as we watch her children play with the other kids at the reception, their laughter echoing through the ballroom where their father once planned to use stolen money to take them away from her. Thompson? Associates told me that someone anonymous was paying their fees, but I knew it had to be you after what came out about your wife and Ryan. The gratitude in her voice reminds me that saving her family was worth every moment of pain I endured, discovering Melissa's betrayal. You don't need to thank me, I tell her honestly, because helping Elena was as much about saving myself as protecting her children. I just made sure the right person had the resources to fight for what mattered most. Sarah appears beside us then, beautiful in her wedding dress and glowing with happiness that makes me understand why people write poetry about love, and Elena hugs her with the warmth of someone who recognizes a kindred spirit. You found a good one, Elena tells Sarah with the authority of someone who's learned to recognize genuine character through painful experience. This man saved my family when he didn't have to, and that tells you everything you need to know about his heart. Sarah's smile as she looks at me contains all the love and admiration I never received from Melissa despite 3 years of marriage, and I realize that the greatest revenge against my ex-wife isn't her social destruction or financial ruin, it's the happiness I've found without her. The honeymoon in France gives us 2 weeks away from the hospital and the business, 2 weeks to focus entirely on each other and the marriage we're building, and Sarah tells me during a quiet dinner in a Parisian restaurant that she's never felt more confident about any decision in her life. I knew you were the one when we were 12 years old, she admits, laughing at her own childhood certainty. I just had to wait for you to figure it out too. It only took me 20 years and a near-death experience. I joke, which is closer to the truth than she realizes, and she laughs in the way that tells me our marriage will be filled with the kind of easy humor that makes everything else bearable. But some people are worth waiting for. The words sound like a cliché, but with Sarah they feel like profound truth, because I've experienced both kinds of love now, the destructive obsession that nearly killed me and the nurturing partnership that brought me back to life. We return from Paris to news that Sarah is pregnant, confirmed by the blood test she took before we left, but didn't tell me about until we were celebrating our first month of marriage with champagne in our hotel suite overlooking the Seine. I wanted to be sure before I got your hopes up, she explains, her hand on her still flat stomach as she studies my face for my reaction, and I realize that even now she's protecting my feelings in a way Melissa never did during our fertility struggles. The baby arrives 8 months later, a healthy son we named James Chen Wong in honor of both our fathers And holding him for the first time, I understand that this is what Melissa and I were supposed to be working toward during all those fertility appointments and IVF discussions. But the difference is that James was created from love between parents who chose each other freely, not from desperation to save a failing marriage or prove something to society. Sarah is an extraordinary mother, just as she's an extraordinary surgeon and an extraordinary wife, and watching her with our son reminds me daily that some people are genuinely good in ways that can't be faked or manufactured. James has her eyes and my stubbornness, according to the proud grandparents who compete to spoil him with the devotion of people who've waited years for grandchildren to cherish. The Pediatric Cancer Wing opens on James's first birthday, funded entirely by the Chen Foundation and staffed by the best physicians Sarah could recruit from around the world, and the opening ceremony feels like the culmination of everything we've worked toward since my rebirth. This building will save thousands of children over the next decades, Sarah tells the assembled crowd of donors and medical professionals, her voice steady despite the emotion of the moment. Every child who walks through these doors will receive the best possible care, regardless of their family's financial situation. I watch from the audience holding our son, surrounded by my father and Patricia Wong and all the people who matter most in our lives, and I realize that the greatest victory over Melissa and Ryan isn't their destruction. It's the positive legacy we've built from the ruins of their betrayal. The money they tried to steal has saved hundreds of children's lives. The clinic they tried to destroy has become a beacon of hope for families facing medical crises, and the love they tried to corrupt has created a family built on genuine affection and shared values. Melissa sends a card on James's first birthday, a generic children's birthday card with no personal message beyond her signature, and I realize that she still doesn't understand what she lost when she chose theft and manipulation over building a real life with someone who loved her. The return address shows she's moved 3 times since the divorce, apparently unable to find stable housing or employment after her reputation was destroyed, and I feel nothing but mild curiosity about what became of the woman who nearly destroyed my family. Ryan serves 8 months in county jail for conspiracy and attempted theft, according to the brief news article I find online, and emerges to discover that Elena has remarried a high school teacher who loves her children as his own and never asks them to choose between their parents. The irony is perfect. By trying to steal more time with his children, Ryan lost them completely, while Elena found a man who puts their welfare above his own desires. 5 years after my rebirth, Sarah and I stand in our backyard watching James play with his baby sister Emma, while our third child grows safely in Sarah's womb. And I realize that the life I'm living now is better than anything I imagined possible in my first timeline. The children are healthy and happy, surrounded by grandparents and extended family who love them unconditionally, and they'll grow up knowing that their parents chose each other freely and built their marriage on mutual respect rather than manipulation. Do you ever think about what might have happened if things had been different? Sarah asks as we watch our children play in the garden we planted together, surrounded by the security and love that money can buy when it's used properly. If you'd stayed married to Melissa? If we'd never had this chance to be together? Every day, I admit, thinking about the car accident that ended my first life and the mysterious second chance that gave me everything I have now. But then I remember that some stories are supposed to have happy endings, even if it takes dying to find them. Sarah laughs at what she thinks is my dramatic sense of humor, not knowing that I'm speaking literally about the death that taught me the difference between love and manipulation, between building a life and destroying one. As the sun sets over our garden and our children, I realize that fighting for custody of my own happiness was the best decision I ever made, even if it required supernatural intervention to make it possible. The money that was supposed to create life ultimately saved the lives of children who needed hope. The woman who tried to destroy my family gave me the clarity to find the woman who would complete it, and the betrayal that killed me the first time became the foundation for a second life built on genuine love instead of profitable lies. Sometimes you have to lose everything to find out what was always yours, and sometimes the greatest revenge is simply living well with someone who truly loves you. But in my case, the greatest victory was discovering that custody battles aren't just fought in courtrooms, they're fought in the heart, where the choice between destruction and creation, between revenge and love, between dying bitter and living grateful determines not just who wins, but who deserves to win.